Okay, good morning. So we're working through Chelek Daled, and we are up to Shin Nun Gimel. We'll do this siman today, Mr. Shem. So here we go. Shnei botim b'shnei tzidei Rishus HaRabim. You've got two houses on two opposite sides of Rishus HaRabim. V'heim shel odom echad, and they belong to one person. Oishel shnaim ve'erev, or they belong to two people, and these two people made an erev, so therefore it's as if it's one entity, one Rishus. If it's on the same level, then mutzah lizreik mizeh lezeh. You're allowed to throw from one of this sort of balcony to the other. Vim echod gevor mechaver, but if one is higher, they're not parallel. Then also lizreik mizeh lezeh. Then you can't throw from one to the other. Elim kain hem klicheres, unless they are klicheres, earthenware kalim, v'chiyotzi and similar she'em yiplu yishaveru. That if they were to fall, they would break. That's when there's a Rishus HaRabim going between these two houses. Then there's no problem. Chazal won't gaze or anything. Even if one of the balconies is higher than the other one, we're not worried about it. So what's going on? So let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. To Beloi Erevu, we're talking about Shnei Batim, two houses on two sides of the Rishus HaRabim, and there's an erev between them, or it belongs to one person, or it belongs to two, and there's an erev between them. Because, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sifkat Na'alev, to Beloi Erevu, if there was no erev between them, you would not be able to carry or to move things from one Rishus to another. Even if there was no Rishus HaRabim between the two of them, moving it from one Rishus to another it would be a problem. Now, we're allowed, so says the Mechaba, that if you've got two houses on two sides of the Rishus HaRabim and you want to throw from one to the other, also unless we're talking about breakable kalim, then it would be okay. So says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton base, Shavim, Rotzolem and the Kimin Shem Shavim, since they're on the same level, Ein Sorech La'amen Yodov Lezrika, you don't have to sort of aim carefully, Shelo Yipal HaChefetz L'matzo, that the Chefetz won't fall down. Because it's on the same level, it's just, across the Rishus HaRabim, and therefore there's no problem. Mutzah Lizrek, V'davka L'mala Me'asar, and Davka we're talking about where you're going to throw it above 10 tefachim from the ground. Because you're going from a yochid to a yochid through via a mokum patur, and therefore there's no problem. Also because that's no longer a mokum patur. If you look at footnote number 1, he says, Omnom hainu dafkim hu zorik es achefetz l'mala me'asar bekarmelis. But that's dafka if you're throwing it above 10 tefachim. But if you're walking it and sort of just holding it above 10 tefachim, that's not good enough. Even if I'm carrying it above 10 tefachim, it's as if it's below 10 tefachim v'asa. Okay, fine. Now, but if these two places, I'm throwing from place A to place B, where one is higher than the other, then Chazal say you can't do it. Since one is higher than the other, you got to sort of judge very accurately, very carefully where it's going to go. You won't get it right. It might fall in the middle before it gets to the second Rishus HaYochid, and you'll come to carry. Now, all of that is if there's a Rishus HaRabim between them. But if there's a Karmelis between them, then no problem. Why? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Hey, to kiven the Isur Karmelis ein the Elam Midrabanan, loy gazun Shem Yipal. We're not worried that maybe it won't make it to the second Rishus HaYochid and it will fall in between. It's a Gezerah for a Drabanan, we're not worried about it. To have a Gezerah and therefore it's okay. And even in the case with the Karmelis in between, muta b'chol gavnei, says the Mishnah Berurah, hainu afilu echod gevor mechaverei, avol pashat the dafka b'she'evru, but of course we're talking about a situation where you made the eruv. Okay, so just to summarize Sif Aleph, we said you've got two houses on two sides of the Rishus HaRabim, belonging to one person, or if they made an eruv, it belonged to two people. If they're on the same level, then you're allowed to throw one to the other above 10 tefachim, which is going Rishus HaYochid to another Rishus HaYochid via mokum patur, so you're okay. But if one of them is higher, then you're not allowed to throw, unless it's a klicheres, which is breakable, where you're going to be very, very careful, because we're worried that it might fall in the middle and osil isuye. But that's only true if there's a Rishus HaRabim between them. If, however, there is a caramelis in between, then we're not geyser, and even if one Rishus is higher than the other one, we're not concerned. Okay, that's Sif Aleph. Sif Base. Ziz. What is a ziz? Hainu daf hapoilit min hakoisa Rishus HaRabim. You've got a little balcony that is that's butting out of the house that is projected into Rishus HaRabim. Lamala me'asara, which is more than 10 tefachim from the ground. V'yesh bei arba al arba, and it's got dimensions of 4 by 4 tefachim. V'chaloin habayis posuach lei, and there's a window of the house which opens up onto it. Mishtamshin olav. So if you've got the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, which I can see we've got our new stock has arrived. So if you look at on page, I don't know what page it is actually, the opposite page. So you've got a picture, right? So you've got a Rishus HaYachid, you've got a house, and you've got a little balcony sticking out. So that balcony is dimensions 4 by 4 tefachim, and it's higher than 10 tefachim from the ground. So in that situation, Mishtamshin Olav. So let's just do the Mishnah Berurah till there. Rishus HaRabim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Zayin, Noka Rishus HaRabim, the Revusa is telling me a Chiddush. Ta'afil Rishus HaRabim muta, even though your house is abutting a Rishus HaRabim and the balcony is emerging onto Rishus HaRabim, muta, I'm allowed to use that balcony, the Ein Rishus HaRabim Teifes L'Manim Asara, because since this is more than 10 tefachim, we know that a Rishus HaRabim does not go more than 10 tefachim. For Kolshkein and Muboil Rishus HaKarmelis to Shar, and certainly if it would be sticking out into a Karmelis, it would be allowed to use that balcony. For I'm Besif Gimel, Diyesh Chiluk, Bein Rishus HaRabim LaKarmelis, L'Nitin Lov Kelim She'ein Nishbarim Ben Filosan. And we'll see in the next Sif that there's a difference between a Rishus HaRabim and a Karmelis in terms of putting Kelim on it which do not break. Okay, we'll see. L'mal me'asara, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Ches, V'lo miboyim hoya chaloin posuach le besomach la'aziz b'toich shleish tvachim. Not only if the chaloin, the open window which sort of leads out into this ziz, this balcony, is within 3 tefachim of the ziz, but vaday mutar lishtamish al aziz metoich chaloin litin alov v'lisan. If it was in 3 tefachim, then for sure you can use it, and put things there and take things from there. Why? Do bichlal chayri Rishus HaYachid, because it has the status of a little hole in the wall of Rishus HaYachid, and it has therefore the status of a Rishus HaYachid. Even if the window was quite distant from the ziz, still you're allowed to use the ziz. Because anything above 10 tefachim is considered a mokum patur, and therefore I'm just transferring from a Rishus HaYachid onto this mokum patur, and therefore no problem. The implication from the wording and the terminology of the Mechaba is that if it was lower than 10, that if it's lower than 10, it's going to be a problem in all situations, even if the ziz is within 3 tefachim of the wall. Since it's lower than 10 tefachim, it's easy for people in the Rishus HaRabim to use it because it's low down, it's quite convenient. And it no longer has the status of Rishus HaYachid. It has the status of a Karmelis. And therefore you can't use it because you're going from a Rishus HaYachid to a Karmelis. And also l'shtamish olav litin olav a little mimeno, to put on it or to take things from it. Bein Rishus HaRabim or bein mitoich chaloin, whether it's from the Rishus HaRabim onto the ziz, or whether it's from the chaloin, from the window of the house onto the ziz. Okay. Sif Cotton Tes, v'yesh be'arbo al arbo, and this little ziz has got it's got dimensions of 4 by 4 tefachim. Lefi ma sheposek ha'machava v'sif gimel, the bekelim she'enam nishbarim. What we're going to say later in Sif Gimel is the kelim she'ein nishbarim also shema yiplu v'also l'sui, kelim which don't break. It's also shema yiplu v'also l'sui, because the likely, there's the concern that it might fall into the area in between. V'osi l'suye, and you might come to carry Rishus HaRabim. V'al karcha chacha mayri bekelim she'ishavra l'dein filosan. But here we're talking about kelim which will break if they're full. V'im kain, if the asked the Mishnah Berurah, afilu ein baziz balabo, even if they haven't got a the ziz hasn't got dimensions of 4x4, shemotzu sheyiplu mimenu, gam kain mutar nishtamish alav, it should be okay. So v'yeshnem b'deichek, so I've got so perhaps you can answer, b'deichek, to knock at Abu Alaba, the reason why it says Abu Alaba is Mishum de Messiah v'chaloin posuach loi, or be'ein haziz Abu Alaba, and if it isn't 4x4, ein tzorech she'ach chaloin posuach loi, it doesn't need to be opened up directly onto it. To mokum patur v'chol gavni mutar lishtamish alav, and therefore it's a mokum patur, and therefore it will always be okay. Okay, maybe. Now let's carry on the machaba. Top line. Now we're talking about a new situation where you've got two of these protrusions, these two of these little balconies, but they're directly one on top of the other. So that's, if you look at picture number 5, you've got a picture of it. So Veheim shall shnei anoshim, and it belongs to two people. So you imagine like two flats or something like that. Afal pisha shneim l'mal me'asor, even though both are higher than 10 tefachim, and therefore they're both in a mokum patur. Im yesh baziz ha'elyon shelifnei ha'chaloin reichav arba alabo. If the top one has got dimensions of 4x4 tefachim, also lehishtamesh alav, I can't use it, i.e. bring from the sheyachid, from the house, the flat or whatever, onto that ziz. Rishus b'fnei atzma, because it's got a status of its own rishus. V'aziz shetachtov rishus acheres v'oisrin zelzeh, and the one below it has got a separate rishus, it's a status of a separate rishus, and therefore they ask on each other. If, however, the upper one hasn't got a 4x4, gam ein betachton abba, and the lower one also doesn't, then mishtamish b'shneim, you can use both. That means you can take from the chaloin and put things onto the ziz, or and you can use all the way up for the bottom 10 tefachim of the area. So let's do the Mishnah Berurah on that little bit. Sif Kotin Yud, Veheim shel, avashel ish echod shari. But if they both belonged to one person, then it would be okay. Given shehem shel rishus echod, because they're one rishus. Vim ivri yachad. And likewise, if you make an error between two people, it's considered one entity, one rishus. Now, what can't you put on there? Dafka kelim, which spent when Shabbos came in, their shvisa was in the house. But if a ben hashmoshes they were actually on the balcony, then mutar l'taltal miziz lechaver, then you can move them. The problem is only if they were in the house, a ben hashmoshes. Ze al ze. So again, this Yud base is going on. So in that picture 5, they would, if it's each one has 4x4 tefachim, and then they would answer each other. Why? Whether it's the upper one or the lower one. But the levush says the lower one is okay. Now, why is that? So if you look at footnote 10, he explains, Kosov Shomtam, Hadova Mishum Shaziz Hatachtein, Shorishus Hayochid, Oila Ad L'Rakia. The lower ziz has the status of Rishus Hayochid. Now, the rule is for Rishus Hayochid, if you remember, it goes all the way up to the heaven, or goes all the way up to the Rakia. Velochein hu oisa al elyon, and therefore it usses the one above it. Aval ha'elyon eina osa la tachton, mishum she'ein rishus haziz ha'elyon yored is the matter, because the status of a rishus hayochid, of this ziz, doesn't go downward. So therefore it's the lower one which is messes up the upper one, but the lower one would be okay according to the levush. That's why the levush is mekel betachton. Now, kosav amogen avram b'shem hamagid mishnah ta'afilu ein betachton abo. Even if the lower one does not have 4x4, gam kein oisrin elu al elu, they will still asa on each other. He explains in footnote 11, v'afal pisha ziz ein dalet tvachim ein nechshav rishus ele mokum patur. Even though less than 4x4, it makes it mokum patur. Kosav hamachsa shekel shemikol mokum kiven she'echod hazizim nechshav rishus. Since one of them is considered rishus, gozru chachomim shegam haziz hasheni yechoshav rishus. It's a gezerah. We consider it as if the other one has also got a rishus. V'lochein hem osrim zalzeh. Over the levush mekel bezeh, but the levush is mekel even in that situation. If you look at 12, the timer, the reason of the levush is kiven she'echod mehem ein bedalet tvachim ve'ein nechshav rishus. The bottom line is it hasn't got dalet tvachim, therefore it's not considered rishus. nimsa she'ein ein kan shtei rishus she'osh v'zu azu v'lochein shnei mutarim. Okay, v'chosov veli rabba she'keinu gam kein b'avodas hakodesh, that he's also mekel. Okay, let's go back and finish sif base. Hoya betachtein. Yeah, I'm 2 lines before the end of the sif. Hoya betachtein arba. So you've got 2 zizin, one on top of the other. The tachtein has 4x4 tvachim, and the elyon doesn't. So if you can look at your bottom picture, this is picture number 6. Can you see the top one? It's like a bit of an optical illusion, but the top one is actually smaller than the bottom one. Can you see that? Yeah. So you cannot use the upper one, i.e., take things from the flat and put them on the balcony. Only immediately opposite the chaloin. Anything beyond that not. On the 2 sides of the chaloin. Because the one underneath it again is going to usher it. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Gimel, Keneged Chaloin Bevad Shehu Kazovis HaChaloin VaRchavosoi, i.e. it's just a sort of an extension of the window, and therefore it's okay, but not beyond it. Why? Shecholek Rishus LaAtzmai, and therefore the lower one has got its own Rishus, and it's going to usher anything which is going to be sort of beyond the opening of the upper window. They answer on the low one as well. And again, he would agree that the low one would be okay. All right, let's just finish off. Sif Gimel. Kol ziz hayetze al avir Rishus HaRabim. Any balcony, any projection that goes over the airspace of Rishus HaRabim, shemuta lishtamish olav, you're allowed to use it. Kashel mishtamish by, when you use it, ein noisen lov, ein noit limenu, ela klicheres uzchuchis, v'chiyetzi bohem shem yiplu Rishus HaRabim mishaveru. What sort of kalim can you put out onto the ziz that is going out from a house overlooking Rishus HaRabim? Only kalim that could break, and therefore you'll be careful that you're not going to let them fall into the Rishus HaRabim. And you might come to pick them up again. Because any other kalim, if it falls, okay, so you'll go and pick it up and you bring it back. That is the concern of the chachamim. The dafka, says the Ramah, ziz dafka, a sort of a projection, a balcony. Aval imhu dover rochav kagag. But if it's very big, it's a much bigger balcony where you stand out there and you're holding things, then no problem. So we're dafka worried about this little sort of piece of wood or something, whatever it is that is protruding from the balcony. There, we worry things could fall off it. If you only got one little balcony that's emerging, anything more than 10 would always be okay. Whether it's big or small, because overlooking a karmelis, like we said before, we're not worried about. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Tezvov, whether it's 4x4 or not. Because if it's more than 10 tefachim high, the airspace of a karmelis is not going to sort of catch it. And therefore there's no problem with using that little protrusion, that balcony, to put things on if it's overlooking a karmelis. But less than 10, have a karmelis, because then it will have the status of a karmelis itself, and then you've got a problem because you're taking from Rishus Yochid into a karmelis. So just to summarize, essentially what we've said in this simon is, in the last 2 sifim, is that when you've got a house and you've got a little protrusion, a balcony, and putting things on it, Chazal were worried that it might fall from there onto the Rishus HaRabim underneath it, and you might come and pick it up and bring it back. And therefore, putting kalim onto this little ziz, which are breakables, we're not worried, because you'll be very careful. They won't worry that it's shemel osel asuye. But if it's things which are likely to break, then you've got a problem. But these are only very small little balconies. If they're larger balconies where you yourself go out and stand on them and hold things, we're not worried about that, because I guess we're not worried you're going to drop things and spill and things like that. Okay, Peseda.